Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Frank Messina, and I'd like to welcome everybody to the Town of Chatham Historical Commission meeting of September 15th, 2020. If you could please bear with me, we have a number of announcements. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify the chairman. Hearing none, proceed. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 1st, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meetings Law, General Law 30A-18, and the Governor's March 23rd, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Chatham Historical Commission is being conducted via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 508-945-4410, conference ID 109221-060 hashtag, or join the meeting via Microsoft Teams through the link on the proposed agenda. Despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access, and we will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. We seem to have a quorum of members of the commission. So what I'm going to do is start with a roll call to ensure we have a quorum. Bob Lear.
I'm here.
Ben Solozinski.
Here.
Stephanie Hamilton.
Here.
Jane Moffett.
Here.
Don Aikman.
Here.
Steve Burlingame.
Here.
Very good. Steve, you will be acting as a voting member in place of Sandy, who's not present. Our one other member, Erica, is not available for the meeting. So we have a quorum and we can proceed. Just one other quick comment for members of the public and the applicants. Obviously, we have a procedure here that is necessary because of the process. I will announce the application, name and address, number. I will give a few words, and then the presentation by the applicant will be asked. Board questions and comments, public statements in favor or opposed to the application. Chairman or other assigned members read correspondence to the record. Rebuttal, board comments, and then the hearing closed, and we deliberate. And audience participation during that deliberation is not permitted, except if the chair makes an exception. And we generally do because we like to keep things simple and easy. We have a couple of members, guests. We have Ali Sabatino, the town planner, who's going to be helping us out on old business items on the zoning bylaw. And Sarah Korjeff, who is the preservation consultant to the Cape Cod Commission, has also graciously joined us to help us out in that discussion. I hope all the members of the commission have done their homework in reference and responded to Ali Sabatino's email and memo of August 12, 2020. There will be a quiz. Okay. We have two sets of minutes which we have to dispose of.
Oh, minutes, yeah.
The first, I'm sorry.
I thought you were going directly to the hearings and not.
Okay, you gotta let me make my own mistakes. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so it's gonna get hairy. Okay, first one is the minutes of August 18th, 2020. Everybody's had this for a while. Any comments or questions or corrections?
Frank, it's Bob. I have I thought there, my hand won't go up for Christ's sake.
Yeah, we got you, Bob.
All right, anyway, the 305 Main Street, which was withdrawn on the first page,
Yes.
and then it continues on, even though it was withdrawn, with some motions, and one, I was recused from that matter, and two, none of that ever happened. I don't know what it's doing there.
Frank,
This-
it's Michelle. I will take care of having that redone.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I don't know why that happened, Bob. Yeah.
Frank,
Yes.
it's Jane. I think the second page is very confusing because in the middle of 305 is a comment at the top of the page about Mark Zebret's explanation of his project, which is right in the middle of 305. So all of those 7 paragraphs are in the wrong order. They really should have, 305 should be removed, and then Mark Zebret, his application should be introduced. And then the next one of him explaining what he's planning to do
Okay.
there. And so
All right.
it's really out of order.
Michelle, why don't we reset this one and send it back to the drawing board?
I was just going to suggest that we will put it aside and do it next time.
Okay. We don't need a motion for that. We'll just move on. The minutes of July 21st, 2020.
Frank, I have another addition, a correction. Jane?
On July 21st, 2020.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Under reorganization of the commission, in the paragraph 3rd from the bottom, I think it should say to nominate existing commission members. I think the word members should be added. A motion was made by Ms. Hamilton and seconded by Mr. Lear to nominate existing commission members.
I got it. Michelle, you guys get okay with that?
Yes, I will make sure that gets changed as well. Thank you.
Any other changes or corrections? If not, Mr. Lear, can you make a motion for me?
I could move we adopt the minutes of July 21st, 2020.
Is there a second?
Second, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, we need.
My hand isn't being, this is Steph Hamilton, my hand isn't being raised, but it should be to amend the minute, to accept the minutes as amended.
I accept that amendment.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna do a roll call. Bob,
Yes,
Ben,
I can't vote. I wasn't at that meeting.
right, thank you. Stephanie,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Thank you very much. Okay. Moving right along, we have two hearings, which I don't think are going to take an exceptional amount of time. And then we can get on to some of our old business and some activities which are consuming your chair and a lot of other people. So the first application will be 2020-024. To be heard in accordance with Chapter 158, and the property in question is 46 Silverleaf Avenue. The applicant is Joe Scipiola. Who is representing the applicant today, Michelle?
Gentleman from HSO Contracting, Dave, I believe he's joined the meeting just now. He's on camera.
Here I am, sir.
Hi, Dave.
How you doing, Dave?
Good, how are you?
Good. Let me just spend a second just to orient the members of the public. It looks like we have a rather straightforward application here in the sense that we have a property which is a contributing structure in the National Register District of the Old Village. There is a rather detailed Form B for this 1820, 1850 home. And I think the owners are well aware of the historical significance. And I don't think we're going to have any discussion relative to the historical significance. Dave, what we do is kind of truncate things into two sections and just reiterate the historical significance and then get on to the application. Do you have any problem with that?
No, sir.
Okay. So any member of the commission have any other comments or questions as it relates to reiterating the historical significance of 46 Silverleaf Avenue? Hearing none, it might be appropriate for a motion, Mr. Lear, relative to the reiterating the historical significance of the property.
Okay, I move that the Chatham Historical Commission confirms that the home located for 46 Silverleaf Avenue is a contributing structure in the National Historic Register District. That's all we need.
Jeff Hamilton, I'll second it.
Thank you very much. All right, we need to do a roll call on that just to get it out of the way. Mr. Lear,
Yes,
Ben,
Yes,
Stephanie,
Yes,
Jane,
Yes,
Don,
Yes.
Steve, and the chair votes yes. Okay, just to make one quick comment before we hear the presentation, this is being heard only under Chapter 158 in that, and not under the Cape Cod Commission, as it is less than 25% of the gross floor area. All right, Dave, sorry to be long-winded, but why don't you make a brief presentation? We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hmm.
So you just want me to talk about the project, correct?
Yes, what you're actually planning to do.
So the owners would like to remove the central pillar of the main living space and open up the floor plan a little bit. And the chimney runs directly through the middle with some adjoining half baths and stairway and that sort of thing. So in order to remove that, we investigated the whole chimney. They want to come down, but to preserve the historic, we investigated framing up underneath the existing portion of the visible portion of the chimney that's above the roof line. But it really, it was somewhat of a dangerous situation, but also, extensively expensive, sort of prohibitively expensive method. So the solution we came up with was to actually demolish the whole kitchen, but we've taken really careful measurements and photographs, and we have, so then we'll do a 2x4 framing and sheathing on the inside and replicate the existing chimney, same dimension, with what's called schoolhouse brick from granite slate that looks very similar to what's there now. So shape and appearance and size back with the flashing the way it is, so that from the outside you won't really be able to see a difference. So that's the sort of the overall plan and the way we intend to accomplish it.
Is this an actual, is this a brick veneer that will be adhered to the plywood?
Yes. Yeah. And in the, I don't know if you got the narrative that I sent in.
Yes,
There's a photograph of it in use,
right.
and it looks very similar.
Well, I appreciate your efforts. We're
I know
really
it's important.
big on chimneys on this commission.
I know you are.
Yeah. Well, it's the thing is, guess what? In the 1800s, there were chimneys,
They were pretty important too.
That's right. Yeah. Anyway, okay. Thank you very much. Any members of the commission have any comments? I'm going to do a roll call on comments. It'll be easier. Mr. Lear?
no concerns. Thank you, Frank.
Ben?
no,
Stephanie?
I just wonder if the chimney's gonna be a working chimney.
No, it's just all that will be left is the approximately 58 inches that exist above the roof line. There'll be
Thank you.
nothing inside the house anymore.
Okay,
There is one item that we do have, I wanted to mention is because it's no longer an open vent, we have to do some kind of waterproofing on the opening on top. So to accomplish that, there's a leaded, it's like sheathing. It's like the flashing that we have to put as a cap over the top. It comes down about 3/4 of the way down the first row of bricks. But if you see the photographs that are in the application, that's already an inset course. And so it will be quite hidden. And once it tarnishes, it'll be a dark color.
right, okay,
So slight variation, but pretty unobtrusive.
thank you. Donald
I have no problem.
and Steve Burlingame?
No comment. It's very well done.
Very good. And the
Right.
chair
Me.
has no comment. Does any member of the public wish to speak for or against the application?
Frank, I didn't get a chance to say.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jane, I apologize.
I like the project and I like the veneer.
Very good. Thank you, Jane. I'm shuffling 4 or 5 pieces of paper, so please forgive me if I make a mistake. You can fire me. Okay, here we go. I think we're very confident we can allow this to proceed. There seems to be consensus. Any member of the public wish to speak for or against the application? Hearing none. Mr. Lear, can you give me a motion?
Sure. Working under Chapter 158, the Chatham Historical Commission also finds that the proposed work to be done on 46 Silverleaf, and the dates are June 29th on the drawings and August 2020 on the narrative, will not materially diminish the historic significance of the building structure, and therefore the commission does not impose demolition delay.
Second, Jane?
Thank you, Jane. Okay, any other comments? No, we'll do a roll call. Mr. Lear,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Stephanie,
Yes,
Jane,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Steve,
Yeah.
and the chair votes yes. Dave, thank you very much. I do appreciate the application and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Proceeding. The next application is application 20025 to be heard in accordance with Chapter 158. The address is 99 Pondview Lane, Pondview Avenue. This particular property has been before us in the past. And I don't know, Michelle, can you help me? I don't believe there's a Form B on this property.
1 second, Frank, while I check my file.
And
There is
I
no
think,
form- There is no Form B, but it has been previously determined to be historically significant, February 3rd, 2015. I included the
Okay.
description in your packet.
all right, good. Thank you very much. Okay, so this house is 1930, typical 90-year-old structure. So I think the first element here is the applicant who's presenting is whom?
Mike London.
Mike? Thank you very much.
Yep.
Mike, are you the contractor or the architect or what?
The contractor.
Okay. I don't know if you have any comments as it relates to the historical significance. If not, the commission will just open up that discussion.
I did the remodel on it. Originally, it was 2015. So, I mean, I can tell you sort of what we saved of the original. I understand that doesn't actually pertain to what we're doing now, because obviously as the whole thing becomes historic, but you know, what we're doing luckily isn't impeding on any of the remaining historic portion of the home. So
Okay, well, hopefully members of the commission had an opportunity to do a drive-by. And it's been a while, so I guess I'd like to hear from members of the commission if there are any comments as it relates to the architecture or the, you know, what's been done to the house and whether or not this is even worthy of consideration as being historically significant in accordance with Chapter 158, albeit it is 90 years old. So does anybody wish to jump in on that, or we do a roll call?
Frank, my hand should be raised. I don't know.
Yeah,
You can-
I'm
you can
sorry.
roll
Thank
call
you.
me.
Thank you,
You can
Bob.
roll call me if you want. I have a question as to if anyone recalls why it was declared historically significant in 2015. I mean, if it was a historic person, that's one thing. If it was a historic architectural example, then that's another thing.
Well, you know, I remember what I did last week.
Well, I wasn't even here in 2015, so in the
Well,
seat.
who was,
anyway.
Michelle, who was chair in 2015?
Frank and
Christina, according to my form.
Yeah,
is Jane. I see you're chairman.
well,
It says so here. Your name isn't on it.
well, I don't know what to say. I mean,
Well,
I'm just the chairman. I do what I'm told.
Well, Frank, that was almost a rhetorical question.
I understand, and I appreciate your humor.
No, it's not humor. Well, first of all, the drawings are dated from 2014, which doesn't help me at all.
Yeah.
So they were done before the renovations in 2015, which was somewhat misleading, I guess.
The drawings were completed in 2014, but the work was done in 2015.
I understand that. So why do we have drawings that were before the former restoration?
The drawings are for that restoration. The dates are off because it was like December when the drawings were completed, but the work didn't begin. So I don't think we went in before anybody till 15.
So
All right,
what did the house look like before the restoration in 2015? Are there drawings for that? I assume there are.
Of the original structure?
Yeah, that's what was described as historically significant. Found historically significant.
To my knowledge, there was never, I mean, again, it was built in the 30s. There were never any drawings of the existing structure. I think we just presented a handful of photographs of the existing at that point.
So we don't here have any record of what was declared historically significant.
I just looked through the minutes and I don't see anything noted, and I don't see a motion form in this file either. So, and Michael is right. What they supplied in 2015 for existing were the photographs of the home and then the proposed plan.
Well, look, you know, I think we need, at this particular point, we should deal with what we have now. And I think the photographs he supplied are sufficiently descriptive of what we have. And I know I took another site visit and looked it over again. You know, if anything was considered historically significant relative to back, you know, 5 years ago, you know, with the changes and any bit of architecture that may have been there is gone. And who knows what the situation was back then. So,
Well, Frank, I agree with your statement. Whatever was historically significant is gone. I think, is gone with the proposal. It may still be there with what renovations were done in 2015, but now that the proposal overwhelms everything. And there is no historical significance where there was.
right.
That's my position, so.
I would agree. I think we have Jane, you have your hand up.
I was just gonna comment on the structure on the top. But if we haven't decided whether we're hearing this or not, I won't say anything.
Well, all right. Well, let me do a roll call from that perspective. Jane, do you have any thoughts relative to the historical significance of the property?
Well, I signed my name on the back of the document that it was historically significant in 2015, and I remember seeing the house then. It looked very familiar to me, and I knew we'd seen it once before. But I don't I mean, as Bob pointed out, I don't really remember why we thought it was historically significant, except for the age, maybe. I don't know what to say.
Ben, any comments?
Here.
How big is the addition? Is it just that little piece off the front?
Yes. Yes, it's 18 by 21.
Yeah. My feeling here is if it's such a small addition and looking at the new drawing, I would just let it go. It seems to be much ado about nothing. Just not big enough to make a difference. So that's.
I'll have to call you back. Sorry. Thank you. Ben, I tend to agree with you. Stephanie?
It's very confusing, but I guess I'd go along with it.
Don?
I would totally oppose it. I believe this is a historic three-quarter cape that has historical significance, and the addition that's proposed is going to overwhelm it. I am totally opposed and would support a full 18-month demo delay.
Well,
This is Steph Hamilton. Are we talking about whether it's historically significant, or are we talking about the changes that are going to be made now?
well, I wanted to address the first issue first.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Don is, I think he made his comment very clear. And I don't disagree with Don in terms of it being, an old three-quarter cape. But let's proceed. Steve, how about you?
Well, without any evidence, and there doesn't seem to be any direct evidence that this house does have any historical significance. There's no documentation that I've seen in the file to indicate that. I mean, it appears to be, it looks like a three-quarter cape, but that may be what somebody wanted to build in 1930 or 40 or 50 or whenever they did it. But there's no Form B to indicate that. If it is in fact a three-quarter cape, there would certainly be a Form B involved. And if there isn't, there's no evidence that it has any historical significance, and I don't think we have jurisdiction.
Well, we certainly have jurisdiction. The question is whether or not we agree on the opinion of it being historically significant or not. Michelle, do you know how it was rated by Eric?
Just reach for that book at the moment. Give me 1 minute and I'll get back with you.
Yeah, take your time.
Frank, can I say something?
Absolutely, go ahead.
I have the form here. I don't know if you can see it, But
No.
the people who signed it, that it was historically significant,
Yes,
Ben Smolinski, Bill Manley, Don Aikman, me, Bob Oliver, and Sandy Porter.
yes,
So at that point, we thought it was historically significant.
yes. Thank you.
Frank?
Yes, Michelle.
Eric has it on the no list.
Yeah. I think this was a transition time, ladies and gentlemen. So we seem to have a mixed view of the commission and no consensus, but I would like to, I don't know if it's worthy of any other additional discussion. I'd like to put it to a vote and get a sense of the commission relative historical significance or not, and then we could move on from there. Mr. Lear, would you accommodate me?
All right, I was muted. Are you looking for a motion that is historically significant or is not historically significant?
Whatever way you float your boat.
All right,
I prefer you to do it in accordance with what you feel.
okay, that's fair. Therefore, I move that the Chatham Historical Commission finds that the building located at 99 Pondview Road is historically significant because it is whole or in part 75 years old or more, and it is associated and possesses architectural or value or significance in terms of period and style and method of construction.
I will second it. Steph Hamilton.
Okay, Steph, thank you very much. Okay, Ben,
Yes.
Stephanie,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes,
Don,
Yes,
Steve.
Yes.
So you're voting for historical significance? Yes. And the chair votes yes. So very simply, I guess we're reaffirming what we said back in 2015. So the motion passes. The issue at this particular point is whether or not we concur relative to the extent of the changes being prepared. So I would ask our guest to give us a little bit more description of what he's planning to do.
Well, I guess to start with, the owners were kind of looking to take advantage of some of the yard space that they had to turn it into living space, is sort of where it started. And then as we discussed doing that, they wanted to add the potential for a real bedroom once they're tied into the sewer. Was sort of the baseline of how the whole thing started. From there, we added the roof deck. We kind of did our best with what we had to work with from there to create sort of an old style look, like Widow's Walk feel to it, while providing, access to the deck itself. Kind of how we landed where we are.
Well, it is significant.
Yeah. I mean, it's architecturally, it does change things. I think it does still present as sort of a classic look.
The classic look of what?
I mean, we certainly weren't trying to create anything modern. Was not our intention, I guess, is where I'm going with this. We wanted something that would fit.
I think you're going to get a sense that what you're proposing is, and this is just my comment, is a bit overwhelming to the original property, which is the 3/4 cape in the front. So having said that, I think I want to hear from, if you have nothing more to say to that, ask the members of the commission to comment on it.
Sure.
Frank,
Yes, ma'am.
can I say something?
Yeah, I was going to do a roll call, but go ahead.
Oh, no, you do your roll call. Unless
All
you
right.
want to say something now.
Yeah, go ahead, Jane. You're already on.
Okay, to me, it looks like two houses next to each other, the two front doors. And that's one thing. And I agree with Don that it's doubling the size, at least it looks. And I know we don't have any design review, but the Widow's Walks, so-called, is a bit high, I think, in proportion to the rest of the house below it. Looks a little bit like a hat sticking up.
Yeah.
I would prefer no windows and also clapboard siding. I think, it should match the bottom. That's what I have to say.
All right. I'm going to go around the room, guys. Bob?
Yes, just in response, I think, to something that Ben said, there's a 35% increase in footprint, and it's being raised 8.5 feet, which relates to what Jane was saying about the hat. I also think that it's way beyond a widow's walk. Whatever it is extraordinarily out of character for a cape of any kind. And the size of the addition just on the footprint is a large chunk of what the house is. So I agree. It looks like two houses with a giant thing perched on top, and which is clearly not of any historical significance.
Thank you.
It vastly diminishes the historical significance.
Yes. Ben?
I mean, I too am against that so-called hat. My problem here is if they're going to try to get any living space increase in this house, the initial dwelling is so small that anything you would put would be overwhelming. And I just don't understand how you would get away with it unless you put the proposed addition in the back of the house rather than off to the side. I can see how you want to increase the size because it's so small, but but because the house it's the initial dwelling is so small, I don't know how you can do anything without kind of overwhelming the basic structure. So I think either you have to allow that or reposition the addition to the rear of the house and get rid of the hat, or I just don't know otherwise.
Well, the only comment I would just, if you would mind, Ben, is the fact that, you could increase the square footage by not doing another 2-story addition, which will overwhelm the existing one, and also keeping things on a one level. Anyway, there are ways to do this, but I agree with you in terms of it overwhelming the existing house. Jane, you have anything else to add?
No, I said what I had to say.
Donald?
I will reiterate what I said before, that that tower is just going to overwhelm the historic 3/4 cape, and no one will ever recognize what was there before. The addition to the side, the roof deck is really overwhelming that addition, and maybe a widow's walk is not what I think it is, but a widow's walk should be, but it looks like a whole roof deck. And
Yes.
I think that's totally inappropriate in that area. You've got little small homes in the area, and now you're going to have this huge addition on this modest 3/4 cape, and I'm totally opposed.
Okay, I think you've got a sense of the commission here, Chris. So at this particular time,
Could I comment, please?
who was that?
Steve.
Oh, Steve, I'm sorry. Did I skip you? I apologize, Steve. I thought I got you.
You skipped me too, Frank. It's Steph.
All right, sorry, Steph. Thank you.
I have a question of the builder. Because I didn't, we keep talking about the 3/4 cape. It certainly looks like one. I built in 1970, I built a full cape. Nothing historically significant, but it looked like a full cape. With a big massive chimney, etc. With not vinyl, but aluminum siding, which was popular back then. Does this house have any indication that it is any significant age?
I think we've dated it at 1930, Ben, Steve.
Okay, all right. So it's a kind of I would call it a reproduction or neo 3/4 cape as opposed to a 18th century, 19th century 3/4 cape.
No question about that.
I'm
It's
thinking
certainly-
if it seems to be that what we voted previously about finding it historically significant was the fact that it was built 1930, more than 75 years old. And that's about it. I think that, I suppose if I were the homeowner at this point, I would tear the whole thing down, start over again, build a big house like he wants to. And I don't think there'd be any real.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, this is the homeowner right now. Can I have a minute, or do I have to defer to my builder?
Hold on, and don't interrupt, please. Thank you. I'll recognize you. Can you finish, Steve?
Yeah, I will. I think that, next door there is looks like a brand new, but it's certainly 1965 style split level.
Yes.
Or raised ridge, I guess it is. Kind of a hodgepodge over there. Some very nice homes, and mostly it looks like it was a cottage area at one time.
Yes.
But I'm not really wedded to this house. It wouldn't bother me a lot if they changed its appearance. It's a big addition, but you might be better off just to tear the house down and build a big house like they want.
Well, okay. I think there was a comment from somebody else, which we'll get to. And I guess I tend to agree with you, what you're saying at some point, Steve. But the fact is that it was a cottage community. There are small houses in the area, some from 1930s and some from the turn of the century. But having said that, I think we have a sense of the commission, but I believe, was it the applicant who wished to be heard?
Yeah, this is the applicant and the homeowner, and I appreciate the time, Mr. Chairman. Christopher Luistro, I reside in North Attleboro, Massachusetts. I've been the homeowner now for 5 years. And I bought the home after it was completely raised in 2015. So I'm actually somewhat concerned on the committee making a recommendation to take a home that was completely ripped down 5 years ago and rebuilt and redone. So obviously that's causing me some level of concern. Secondly, I'd like to go back to the original conversation where there's no Schedule B, Form B we discussed, and no one can really point to why this thing is historically relevant. So what I would ask the committee, if we can, to before putting up for a vote, because clearly I can see where this is headed, if we can drive by the area, every home in the area has been completely ripped down and rebuilt. And the house next door to it is a split level ranch. So we're not talking about an area with an amount of significant historical value. So that's at least my my question to the committee.
Well, the only thing I would say is, I'm sure most of the committee members have visited the property, which is part of our protocol. We don't do it all together any longer because of the COVID. So I think we are familiar with the property. And back in 2015, what you heard is that the commission, made the conclusion, notwithstanding a Form B, that it was in fact historically significant as a 3/4 cape in terms of its age and its architecture, et cetera, et cetera. Having said that, unfortunately, or unfortunately, I guess from your perspective, the commission just about 20 minutes ago reiterated that they felt that the house was in fact historically significant, which is our process and prerogative. Notwithstanding the completion of a Form B, it doesn't necessarily do a Form B for every home in town. It's a process, which we do. So I think what you're hearing here is a consensus of the members of the commission that what you're proposing here is out of scale and architecture design relative to the particular original 3/4 cape. Yes, the house was allowed to be modified and made some changes in 2015, but it doesn't eliminate the fact that the original 3/4 cape is still there, at least from the exterior. And you're right, changes were allowed to be made. I don't think the house was gutted. Our concern is the exterior architecture, not the interior. When I say our concern, that's the limit of our authority as it relates to the demolition delay bylaw. So that's where we are. Now, there's a couple of ways this could proceed. If you've got the sense of the commission, you could step away, take another look at the design that you're proposing, and maybe try to find a way to preserve the original 3/4 cape's architecture and its sense of what the house is. I think you'll have to agree, you're really trying to get a lot there in that one space, and you're overwhelming the original house. So let me suggest to you, without us taking a vote at the present time as it relates to a demolition delay, is you go back and take another look at it and come back to the commission at your convenience, and we're happy to allow this to be reconvened and take another look at a proposed design which is not as impactful to the original structure. Is that a reasonable thing to ask you?
Frank, before that, I'm Steph
Wait a
Hamilton.
second. Excuse me, Steph. Just don't interrupt.
I wasn't called on.
Steph, don't interrupt, please. Sir, can you comment on my question?
Well, I would like to hear Stephanie, what her opinion is, because frankly, I didn't get much to go on other than you didn't like the design. There was no real comment as to what you might like to see. I am amenable to making changes that suits the committee 100%, but I don't think I got any sort of coaching here on what you would be looking for. So I would like to hear more from the committee, please.
Well, I'm going to attempt to summarize it, and then we can hear from individuals. What you're proposing here is effectively a second house attached to the first house. And this second house overwhelms the first house and is really not separated in any way. It just looks like a continuation of the first house. And as there was one comment, you got two front doors. So where's the house? The second comment, which I think you heard, is that you're proposing roof decks over the house, which are completely inappropriate with the style and architecture of the time. Well, you know, you may be able to do something, but right now it completely overwhelms the original 3/4 cape. I think that's about as specific as we want to get. We don't tell you what to design, but we can tell you how it is impactful to the original 3/4 cape. Stephanie, what did you have to say?
I just wanted to ask if it was possible to move the whole thing to the back.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's a good comment. You know, let's not get into a design review here with the applicant. I think
But, you know, hold on, that is a very good question. And I did work with zoning, and we're all within the zoning requirements. If we go to the side, the back could have been problematic if we went to the rear. So we did look at that, hence why we went with design that we're in.
right. Understand.
Frank, this is Steve, if I may. We talk about this house just be double wided in a fashion, but of course the new addition does set back substantially from the front of the original house. So it's not side by side. One is substantially set back, which makes it, to me, less of just a widening of the existing house. You know, if it didn't have a door, if it didn't have a porch or a little porch roof, it would change it significantly, I think.
So who is that speaking? I appreciate those comments. I would be happy to potentially review, and I understand the increase to the height with the Widow's Walk. I thought the committee would actually be amenable to a Widow's Walk and bringing some integrity back to the town on that site, but I'm happy to remove that and relook at that. And if the door is giving some concern, I'm happy to relook at the door as well. I'm glad you could see that we were pushing the back to give it depth and make it more of an L, which I think you'll see a lot of the capes in the town having that same look. And that's why I was confused that you would think it's a house side by side. It's really far deeper than the original frontage, and we felt it gave the benefit of that.
Well, I think also the fact that you put that roof deck on it, you got a 2-story addition next to a 2-story addition, and it's not, you know, you have it a flat surface in the front. If you look at the original cape, that's, you know, the roof line is gone. You've got a straight wall, 2 stories high. So I think you've got to go back and take a really hard look at it. I think you get a sense of it. But, you know, we don't have to do it formally, you know, in the sense that you put some concepts together and we'll talk about it.
Frank, could I say something?
Yes, Jane, go ahead, please.
He's asking for suggestions visually of what happened to the picture it went. I think Steve's idea of maybe a 1-story would be an improvement on the addition side. And also the Widow's Walk is quite overwhelming, but I think if he had considered a cupola, which might be an appropriate shape instead of a Widow's Walk, but in any case, a smaller Widow's Walk that doesn't stick up as high. That way, and then remove the other front door. Those are my ideas.
Okay, sir, have we given you enough insight?
Yeah, you're giving me plenty to work with because I understand where this is headed. So, Mike, my builder is on. Mike, do you have any comment?
No, I mean, it looks like we know what we need to do to try and switch things up to make it happen here.
Okay, so then what I'd like to suggest is we entertain a motion to move this application, to adjourn it to a future meeting. And Michelle can help you in terms of the timing. We know time is money and we would like to facilitate as much as we can. Ms. Briggs, can you turn your camera off? Thank you. Will you accept an adjournment at this particular time, sir?
Yes. So-
Okay. Bob, can you facilitate?
Yes. I was just finding my meeting dates thing. The next meeting is October 6th, Michelle?
Yes, the next meeting is October 6th. I'm wondering,
Filing date is September 9th, so that's not gonna work, right?
No, there's no filing.
so yeah, yes, initially there would have been a
Oh,
filing
Okay,
date.
I'm sorry, okay.
Because
So I
of
guess
the
the
legal notice.
question I would ask Frank is October 6th, time enough for the applicant to take the steps that he feels he needs to take?
Well, let me suggest to the applicant that what we'll do is adjourn it to that particular time. If in fact you're not ready, we have no problem with continuing it to the next meeting.
Yeah, I think I think I'd like to adjourn it to that time, and then I'll come back to the committee. I have some conversations to do. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate your cooperation. Thank you very much. Okay, Bob, can you make that motion, please?
Yep, I move that the commission postpone this or continue this application until October 6th, 2020.
I got
Second,
second by Jane, I believe.
yes.
Steph, okay, can you turn your hands up? We're gonna do a roll call now. If there's no other comments from the commission or members of the public,
Frank, could I just amend my motion slightly to say with the permission of the applicant?
Steph, you agree, I'm sure.
Yes,
Okay,
I second it.
Ben,
Yes.
Stephanie,
Yes,
Jane,
but I don't know if I'd approve a couple of.
Oh, none. Yes,
Jane,
yes,
Don,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Mr. Lear,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Thank you very much. You know, it's a difficult way to do things with this, but I do appreciate your patience and cooperation with us. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Briggs, could you please turn your camera off? Thank you, Ellen. I guess you can't hear me. All right, and she's muted. Okay, we're gonna move on. I leave these meetings with a sore throat. The next item of business is old business. And we have Ali Sabatino, our principal planner. And the subject is, for the public's information, is status and discussion of and the discussion of the potential zoning bylaw changes to enhance historic preservation. The Historical Commission, some time ago, it's probably a year or so, proceeded to take up this proposed zoning bylaw change, which was before the planning board, presented by the Cape Cod Commission, Ms. Korjeff, Sarah Korjeff, and we appreciate her being here. We were proceeding, when I say we, the commission and Ali and myself, in terms of meeting with the Board of Selectmen, the planning board, and with staff, multiple meetings with the staff. Does everybody have Ali's memo in front of you?
Yes.
All right. I hope other members of the commission did their homework and took a look at it. What you have is Ali's memo of August 12th and the draft bylaw dated March 10th, 2020, as well as the potential host lots and the number of historic buildings would be affected by it. So very simply, without going through everything, Ally summarized the next steps that we could take. So very simply, Ally, why don't you say a few words as it relates to what you consider the next step that we should take, so I can shut up.
Sure, Frank. Hi, everyone. This is Allie. I'm just going to share my screen so that everyone can see the memo that I had put together with the list of next steps. So if you just give me 1 second, I'll get there.
Thank you. You saved my life
Okay.
again.
All right. Can everyone see this?
Not yet.
Okay. How about now?
We got it.
Okay, great. Let me know if it's hard to see.
Can you enlarge it?
Yep. Is that better
Uh,
or worse?
sound like an eye examination.
I know. All right. Well, that's as far as I can go.
Yeah, that's a little bit better.
Okay. So just to follow up with what Frank was saying, the last time we had discussed this, I think, was in March, before kind of the whole world seems like it fell apart. And we were trudging forward with the proposed zoning bylaw amendment for historic incentives. And there was a few options just to give the board kind of a reminder. We were potentially thinking about host lots, which means that it basically is adding an additional lot to a property if the applicant would keep and not demolish an existing historic home. So we're allowing for the property to be subdivided and add a smaller lot than what the zoning would allow there. And we would require that to be 1/2 of the minimum lot size. So I know that's a lot of words, so I can give you an example. If you have a 40,000 square foot, so R40 requirement for a lot, in order to subdivide a parcel into two, you would need at least 80,000 square feet. Through this bylaw, it would only require you to have one 40,000 square foot lot, and then the other lot could be half of that, so 20,000 square foot. So you would only need a total of 60,000 square feet to subdivide. I know that's kind of confusing, but that was one of the options that we're putting forward. Another option would be to revise or to allow greater building coverage on a lot, building setbacks on a lot, and building height on a lot. And I think a great example is what you guys were just discussing before this. A member of the commission had asked if potentially that the new addition could be in the back, and the applicant stated that through zoning it would be difficult to do that because they would potentially need relief to do that. So that's why they put it on the side. And so this would be a bylaw that could potentially allow that to happen in the back. So that was just a quick update of kind of what the board or the commission was considering going forward with. So last year, we did go to a number of different boards and commissions. So we went to the Board of Selectmen in December of last year, just to kind of explain to them what we were proposing and if we had any comments, if they had any comments for us. And in my memo, it kind of outlined some of the comments that they made at the time. So I won't go through all of them, but some of them were, and it's up here on the screen. Could this historic home be mandated to be year-round? The bylaw is complex, so it might be hard to explain at town meeting. Should you require a deed restriction, a preservation restriction? Host lots incentives should be for R40 and up, and scale percentage of relief depending on lot size. We also went to the planning board in January of 2020, and they gave us some comments. The ones that I thought were really interesting was we should have a graph that should update to show potential historic lots in the future. So how the bylaw will perform over time. So I guess that kind of really means is, as we go forward in age or in time, and, newer homes go through the threshold of becoming historic, 75 years, do we include those in our bylaw as well? How does that work? So I thought that those were kind of interesting. Creation of host lot should be limited to one lot with frontage on the road. And Title V, a number of bedrooms concerned for smaller lots. So then we took some of those comments and we met with staff on January 22nd and then also in March 9th. And these were some of the comments that were made then. The host lots must be able to vary setbacks so that they can accommodate homes. Host lots must be the lot with a non-historic structure to work with Board of Health and Sewer regulations. We were very concerned about that. Any additional findings for this proposed bylaw from the existing special permit granting authority, that's more technical, that we can deal with kind of at a staff level. And then determination of eligibility should be determined before the application for preservation incentives is submitted to community development. So that has to do with your commission determining if it's eligible. And so as Frank was talking about the next steps to consider, I just put a few down for the commission to think about as we go forward drafting this bylaw and revising.
Ally?
Yep.
Yeah, just one comment relative to, the summarization of the comments, and I appreciate it. Well done. What I just wanted, when the last time you and I and some of the members of the commission discussed it, one of our concerns was the issue of the Board of Health and sewer regulation. And I just wanted to highlight that you and I did meet, I believe, with Katie Donovan, with Dr. Duncanson, and he generally was supportive in the sense that he didn't feel what we were doing would be impinging on the sewer regulation as it relates and Board of Health. Of course, this was all preliminary, but at least we got a kind of a heads up that we haven't done something which is going to be really difficult to deal with from that perspective. Is that a good analysis of what he said?
Yes, I agree with you, and it was exciting to hear his comments on that. So I thought that was positive.
Yeah, because that was something we were all very concerned about, that we're creating something because, Chatham sensitivity to sewer regulations and coverage is a big deal. So that was good. I'm sorry, would you continue on the next steps to consider?
No, yeah, that was great. So the next steps to consider. So the first one, I really want the commission to think if we should go forward with all of these proposed incentives. Sometimes it's hard for town meeting to kind of swallow all of the very intricate details of each of these things. And so obviously the host lots, it's very exciting, and it's something, that would potentially save some historic homes. So that's exciting, but I think that the commission has to think, do we feel like town meeting would be supportive of it potentially? And then also the dimensional variation section. I think that that's somewhat easier for, the town as a whole to, think about and vote upon at town meeting. But I really just kind of want the commission to weigh in on that. So should we choose only one historic incentive to go forward with, or should we go forward with the whole thing? And then obviously discuss the comments received from the board's committee staff, which I already outlined above, and determine if some of this should be revised. Some of these examples are what format of preservation restriction will be required. Will the potential future historic homes be included in the bylaw, i.e. home from 1980? Those are all things that I think it'd be really valuable to have the commission weigh in on. And then, after we kind of get this into a more, into a better spot, maybe we go out to the public and hold, a forum and gather some input on this to see if we can make any changes. And then after that, I think we bring the concept back to Board of Selectmen for review and inclusion on the town meeting warrant.
Well, thank you very much, Ally. Great job.
And I know, sorry, Frank, before you go, I know Sarah's here. And if she wants to weigh in, I think that would be great too. I might have missed something that she, sees. So.
Yes, that I would ask Sarah to jump in and help us a bit here. I would say, just a quick knee-jerk reaction relative to both the host lot and the dimensional variations. Having lived the last 9 months of my life trying to save 68 Shell Drive, which technically could have been a dimensional, a host lot situation, and may still be a host lot situation. I think that's something I don't want to leave on the table, but that's my own personal opinion. I think town meeting will be as sophisticated enough, given everything that's going on in the community, to accept both, but that's something that we need to discuss. Sarah, could you jump in if you would like to help us here and give us some guidance and show us the rocks as we try to step across the water?
Sure, I'm happy to make a few comments. I think Ally did a great job of summarizing everything, but I think her suggestion that you pick one thing to really move forward with initially makes a lot of sense. And I guess I would turn to you all to think about all of the demolition cases you've had in recent years and think about which type of incentive would have made the most difference. We did a little bit of an analysis, you might remember, on the host lots to identify how many properties there are in Chatham that in each of the zoning districts might be able to take advantage of the host lot if you did adopt such a thing. And I don't have that map right in front of me, but my recollection is that it's about 100 lots. Maybe Ally's got that. Thank you very much.
She's too good. She's
really great. So in the R40 district, which is essentially the 1 acre lots, we had identified that there were 54 lots that have at least 1.5 times that minimum lot size. So they would be able to create a host lot and a lot for a existing historic structure. So that's not an enormous number of properties, something that Bob Duncanson or the sort of Board of Health would be very nervous about, I think. But it's a big enough number that you could potentially save 50 important historic structures. So that's one way of looking at it. And I think you can then do a similar analysis of if you really changed the zoning regulations and had a great deal more flexibility with minimum lot size and all, just how many properties there would be affected. And here's the analysis that we did of that, where we identified how many properties with historic structures already exceed the maximum lot coverage that's allowed. And I think the idea is just trying to figure out how many of those properties would be more likely to be preserved if they had the flexibility to add additions and such above and beyond what would be allowed on a lot that doesn't have a historic property. So here we're talking about, several hundred properties that could potentially expand further if you were to adopt the flexibility in lot coverage.
Well, there's no question, in terms of numbers, the issue of dimensional variation has a wider impact. And it's interesting because we kind of sneaked into that subject with the current application, which we just heard on 99 Pondview, where the gentleman was going to 2 stories and going up and on the side in front of the house versus in the back because of zoning considerations. So one more time, you've made me see the error of my ways. So I tend to agree with you, but we've got to think more about that with the other members of the commission.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Frank, I don't mean to imply that I think the flexibility in dimensional regulations is a better way to go necessarily. I really think you all need to just think carefully about what's most likely to lead to preservation of more historic properties. And, to a certain extent, if you were to adopt the host lot, it's clear that the whole purpose behind that is preservation of an historic house on its own little lot, which, should be a pretty well-defined preservation effort. Whereas it's not quite as sort of obvious, I'd say, to the viewer if you adopt the flexibility and dimensional regulations. But again, it keeps coming back to which do you think is more likely to address the development pressures that Chatham is facing and result in preservation of more of your important buildings. And just thinking about that, I would say you should feel comfortable identifying the earliest buildings in the town's history really as the target for preservation in these cases. And so to the extent that people are worried about how 50 years from now, a 1980s building might be able to take advantage of this, if that's a point of contention, then it would be relatively easy for the Historical Commission to say that, your target is buildings that are pre-1900 or something like that. Pick an era. I mean, we know Cape Wide that we have a very small number of buildings left from the 1700s and from the early 1800s, and I think those are among the ones that we want most to try to preserve.
Well, it's just interesting comment in terms of how to sell it, so you've given us a lot of food for thought.
Frank, can I just make one comment too? If the commission does want to, go forward with one or the other, I mean, we could always go forward with one, hopefully if everything, the stars align at this upcoming town meeting. And then, maybe then the commission wants to take the next step and do, the other incentive at the next town meeting. So it doesn't have to be like, oh, we choose one and we never, go for the other. It's just being strategic on how, how we can bring it to the town as a whole.
Well, I agree with you, and we'll get everybody else to chime in here. But I like your comments. I guess I'm just a little bit high pressured right now as it relates to the, trying to save one or two houses, which I thought this could help us versus the greater good, if you will, addressing more homes in terms of more historic homes, to try and provide some kind of incentive. And there's no question that in almost most applications that we have, the question is, gee, can you help us? What can you do to help us? Can you get some kind of variance? And one point I want to make with the commission to understand what we're talking about here with the dimensional variation. A key issue here, and I know we discussed it, but just to remind ourselves and get some of the cobwebs out, is that what we're talking about is allowing the zoning board of adjustment. I mean, we don't give dimensional variation, it's a ZBA, but rather than an applicant having to go back before the ZBA for a variance, the variance is a very high threshold, very difficult to get from the board of adjustment, the zoning board of adjustment. But if we in fact put this dimensional variation for historical preservation, it allows the ZBA to more easily give what's called a special permit, which will allow this relatively minor dimensional variation for reasons other than hardship or, the world is going to can, but the fact that they're doing it because of historic preservation. Ally, did I state that correctly?
Yep, that was perfect, Frank.
Oh, perfect. There'll be $20 in your envelope next week. Very good. Keep it up. Okay, guys, I'm talking a lot. I apologize for that. But at this particular point, I just would like your general comments on the discussion so far. And then what I'd like to ask at our next meeting, which I think we have it dated, I've asked Michelle to make sure this is in your package again, and then we'll try to make some decisions. I wanted to give some additional background today, just to remind us what we were doing and where we're going. And then we need to take some actions, because if in fact we're going to make May 2021 town meeting, we need to get going, because there are some mandatory steps we have to take. We need a draft bylaw from the town council. We need to meet with the Board of Selectmen again. We need to meet with the planning board, and potentially some kind of a public meeting other than what we're doing here. Although this is public, it's not on the top priority of other people in the town. So I'd like to start with Mr. Lear. Bob, can you help me here and just give me some thoughts?
I can give you some thoughts. I don't know if it's going to help you. I think, as maybe Ali suggested, the dimensional requirements are probably the easiest to grasp in terms of making that a special permit kind of issue. The example being one we saw today, and I remember one over on Stone Road or something like that didn't run into it, but it would have made it easier. I have a question though. In the next steps, the public forum to gain input from the proposed bylaw. I know in the past you've shared these with sample attorneys and other people that often appear before us. Has that been done yet?
Yes, it did. I am underwhelmed with the response. I shared it with all of the players who usually come before us, Mr. Riley, Mr. Litchfield, Mr. Ford, and a couple of the major developers, contractors, Mr. Polimis. And, I got a couple of comments. Yeah, it's a good start, but nothing specific. So one of the tasks I think we're going to do is to ask Ali through Mr. Costello, our town attorney, is to take Ali's draft and to turn it into a little legalese, and so we have something more definitive. And I think the decision that we make, and I kind of would like to make that decision, is we bifurcate it. We do two separate bylaws, one for the host lot and one for the dimensional variation. I think it's becoming self-evident after listening to Sarah. And then, so we have something more specific to share with members of the public.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
I'm sorry, who is that?
It's Bob. That makes sense to me.
Okay. Ali, is that doable from your perspective?
Yeah, I just don't know which, I think the commission has to discuss which, bylaw or historic incentive they want to go forward with at the moment.
I believe what we're saying is that strategically, we probably will go forward with the dimensional variations, but at the same time, I'd like to start, and I did have a brief conversation with Katie on this, if you can, just reiterate it through her from a staff level, to have them take a look at the host lot and see, and to look at from a legal point of view, to make sure we're not doing something that we think we shouldn't be doing. And I guess the question also there for Sarah, did you have legal review in some way of what you're proposing?
We did not do legal review. It's necessary for the town certainly to discuss the legal issues with your town council, but we did look at other towns in Massachusetts that have both of these types of historic preservation incentives, so we can speak to the fact that other Massachusetts towns have successfully gotten this type of incentive through the Attorney General's office. And I think just to the point that you just made, Frank, there may be some value in bringing both of these ideas to a public forum and asking the public to tell you which of these two they're the most comfortable moving forward with.
Right, that's a good idea. That's an excellent idea. So Bob, and we'll go around the table, but I think I'd like to try that strategy. Anything else, Bob?
No, you captured it.
Ben? Mr. Sullivan?
I think that this is the correct way to go without having any, financial incentives like lowering the tax or assessing or something like that. Was more in the permitting scheme of things. The one thing that I would be careful of when you say bring this to a public forum is the public should be educated somehow before and not just come with the negative, you're not controlling my property business, because usually you'll find a large segment of the populace who don't know what's going on in depth will have that sort of knee-jerk reaction. And I may be wrong on that, but having had previous experience, the knee-jerk reaction for that would be, we don't want you to have any control. And I think that's one of the reasons you got a lukewarm response from the builders and the lawyers, because they certainly don't want any impingement on a free reign. So
I agree with you. And we have a long way to go. There's no question in terms of the public outreach.
But yeah, so I'm big on the public education, because I think the vast majority of people, if they're educated, will be for this. The same group of people who always say to us, how did you let that happen? Well, this is your chance not to let it happen. So, okay. But
all right, thank you, Ben.
Basically for it.
Stephanie?
Yeah, I do have one question. The planning board comments, number 5. It says should be limited to additional one lot with frontage on the road. You mean frontage on the road for the historic home?
Ally, can you add to that? I'm pretty sure that's what they were saying.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get to the memo. If you just give me one sec. You said number 5.
Number 5 for planning board.
Yes, I'm not sure if they, and I might have been wrong, this was a while ago, but I'm not sure if they really were talking about the lot with the historic home or not, but I think that they really wanted to make sure that there was frontage on a road and not create, I don't know, like a new road to serve both of the lots. I think that was their goal, but I could have been wrong. I could be wrong.
I think it was a flag lot question too, but
yeah, that's what I thought, Frank, when I heard that.
Yeah.
The
All right.
flag lots bring in fire engines and all the other business.
Yeah. Stephanie, thank you.
I would agree with Ben that I think that we need more education for our people, our town.
Oh yeah. We're just restarting. Jane?
I have a thought about education. I agree with both the dimensional and the host lot themes. But I think it would help to give an example of where a host lot might have helped. And certainly 68 Shell Drive is one example. And maybe the Fitzhugh House is another example of where, if we had a change in zoning, that would have helped.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's not necessarily subtle. but you're right. We could give some examples. I think Sarah was alluding to that in terms of you know, how we've had experiences in the past, and use concrete example for either homes we've lost or homes that we could save. All right, very good, Jane. Don?
Frank, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I have a question for Ally. She said that a 40,000 square foot lot, you'd have to have an additional 20,000 square feet alongside of it. I thought that having a 40,000 square foot lot, you could take 30,000 for one building and 10,000 for the other. Is that not correct?
So in the current bylaw, and Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, it has to be, the host lot has to be at least half the size of the zoning district. And so that would mean that the smallest of, you know, if it was in the R40 zoning district, which requires 40,000 square feet, the smallest a lot would be 20,000 square feet.
So someone would have to have an empty 20,000 square foot lot alongside of them in order to take advantage of this. Is that correct?
So it wouldn't be if they'd have their parcel size, their lot size would have to be large enough to have 1.5 the zone or area that the zoning district requires. So if you were in the R40 zoning district, which required 40,000 square feet, you would at least have to have 60,000 square feet of property. And so that kind of narrows things down, you know, for the amount of parcels that this, you know, could help, just because you do need a larger size parcel in order to accomplish this incentive. Does that answer your question? Or Sarah, again, if you can explain better than I can, please pop in.
Hi, this is Sarah. I think, Ally, you did a good job, but I wonder if it might help to pull that map up again that shows the host lots.
Sure.
So Don, your comment, you don't need to have a separate lot adjacent to the historic property in order to create a host lot. What you need is a lot that's bigger than the minimum lot size allowed in your zoning district, so that that lot is big enough that you can essentially break it into two parts, one of which would still meet the minimum lot size, and then the other would be a smaller lot that could accommodate the historic property. And this map shows in purple, shows those lots that exist in town as of about a year ago that were at least 1.5 times the minimum lot size for their zoning district.
We actually have concrete examples of this, and that people are coming to me. There's one property on Old Harbor, I can't think of the name, a large piece of property with an historic structure on it, and they actually want to do this. You know, they want to be able to save the historic house and allow a new house to be put in on the property, and obviously it just is it's a no-brainer some way, and that's why, although I know I am partial to agreeing in the sense that, you know, we maybe just go with the dimensional first, I guarantee you there's some houses we're going to lose if we don't do something. But anyway, okay, Don, Steve? Mr. Burlingame, are you around?
I'm here.
Okay, Steve, do you have any comments on what's transpired so far?
No, I think that you made a comment that I would agree with. It's a good restart.
Yes.
And I think the use of examples is probably more important than anything else.
Right. I agree. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I really do appreciate
Frank,
your... Yes, sir.
I'd ask a question just to clarify. We're talking about 40,000 square feet or whatever. Is that buildable or because I note that a lot of these properties are near wet stuff, and which might impinge on the theory of whether they in fact could have another building on them if they're intruding on conservation areas.
My good friend, Mr. Lear, you're talking about 68 Shell Drive.
Well, among others, yes. But look
3
at all the
acres,
ones that are purples next to the water.
Yeah, 3 acres, but maybe 10% buildable.
Right.
So this is Sarah Korjeff. If I could jump in, for that analysis that you saw in the map there, we only looked at upland areas to calculate how much land was available and whether they had at least 1.5 times the minimum lot size.
Okay.
Interesting. I didn't
Great,
realize
Sarah.
that.
Okay, that's all I got, Frank.
Sarah, can I ask, with these maps, can you, if you haven't already done so, if you can, I love delegating upward. Could you provide, the conditions for the decisions? I mean, that was interesting. I didn't realize you did that you only took uplands. But if you did, it may have went in one ear and out the other. So, I mean, if we could delineate that on some kind of a note on the drawings, because I think it would be a key question. And someone like Bob, who's very interested in conservation, having served, et cetera, that's a good comment.
Well, it's actually on the map. You can just see it in the top left corner in the key. It's not in big type, but the very last line in the key says the host lots have 1.5 times the required upland lot area. So if you need that to be more clear, we could do that.
Well, obviously, I didn't understand it. Okay, no, that's good. I mean, at least now we understand what we're talking about, or try to be able to answer questions. Okay. I really, really appreciate everybody's attention to this, and Ali and Sarah, thank you very much. So the homework assignment, if you will, we have to move here quickly, it's getting on here, is at our next meeting, we're gonna make some decisions as it relates to the specific questions that are being asked, and to be more definitive. In the meantime, Ali, if you could look into my request relative to dealing with some kind of legal review, I think it would be helpful. And then I will, with the result of that legal review, I will go out and pulse one more time some of the major players in the community who have something to say about these things. All right.
Sounds good, Frank.
Go ahead.
Sounds good, Frank. That's all. And thank you so much for everyone for reviewing this. And thanks, Sarah, for being willing to come back.
Okay. My goodness, it's 4 o'clock. Here we go. Just very quickly, I would like to comment on the elephant in the room, which is 68 Shell Drive. Long story short, 68 Shell Drive is our property in North Chatham, which, as a result of the archaeological analysis, architectural review, we've determined pretty clearly that it's what they call a circa 1700 first period colonial home. And myself and staff, I've been working very hard to try and working with the owner to find a way we could potentially save the structure. Along those lines, I had updated with Eric Dre our request to Mass Historic Commission as it relates to answering their previous questions on the potential eligibility as the property as a National Register property. It may be mute, but we at least wanted to get that going. The previous owner had not really wanted us to do it, and we respected that, even though we did 90% of the work. So Mass Historic is in COVID mode, just as everybody else, but they did assure me they will consider the request. let me just quickly state, I plan on, as your chairman, going before the Board of Selectmen tonight and asking the Board of Selectmen to reconsider my previous request for an agenda item for the Board of Selectmen to pull together some key staff people to look into how the town of Chatham can cooperate to save this iconic structure, 68 Shell Drive. Long story short, there's a number of actions which are being contemplated. On the positive note, the barn and the hayloft above the barn, I think there's a 95% confidence level that is going to be flaked and moved to the Nye Family Museum in Sandwich. Hate to lose it in Chatham, but I'm going to do everything we can to make sure it doesn't end up in the pile. There are 2 more barns if anybody thinks they want something built in 17 or 1800. So we are working on it. The house itself, there are a number of options that could happen. The owner is considering leaving the structure on the property and utilizing it as some kind of a guest structure. There are all kinds of zoning and conservation issues, but I'm happy to say, in my opinion, there is cooperation with community development and staff to see if we could find a way to allow that to happen. That's an expensive project, and we're not sure that owner is going to be able to do that. If we did that, he would allow it to remain on his property. He would utilize it, restore it, and we, the town of Chatham, would still have some access to the property. And it's probably, as Sarah Korjeff, reminded me, it's probably the best thing to do because it keeps the circa 1700 house in the historical setting where it was probably built by one of the Nickerson children. I'd like to offer to members of the commission, if you haven't actually toured the building and the facility, contact me and I can arrange a tour. We had about 6 or 7 people from town staff there today to view it for the first time. It's a magnificent piece of property, and I think a magnificent intact, probably the oldest intact home in Chatham. In addition to that, there's a group in town called Protect Our Past, Ellen Briggs, and she is organizing a drive to try and raise money to relocate the house to another part of Chatham. They think they're currently thinking about the Eldridge Garage parking lot property behind it, but this is all very new. There's probably going to be information in the paper this week. So, stay tuned. There's no answer here yet. And quite candidly, I've also had an offer from somebody else who doesn't live in Chatham, who maybe wants the house. So we've got a number of irons in the fire, but nothing is happening definitive yet. It's going to take a long time to make it happen. Just very quickly, Monomoy Theater property, I guess we all know we got all of a sudden another town meeting to try and change the zoning to allow that to proceed. And of course, the last time I spoke with Mass Historical Commission, they assure me they are looking at our request for the South Chatham Village application as a National Registered District. I've talked myself out. I'm sorry, I know it's a lot, but there's a lot going on. So anybody else have any other comments or questions? All right. Unless you've all gone away, if there's no further questions or comments, Sarah, one more time, thank you very much. Ali, thank you very much.
Frank,
Yes.
can I say something about 157 Cross Street?
Yeah, sure.
It's on your list of, well, the demo delay has expired on August 2nd.
Yes.
But it's still advertised in the Chronicle or September 3rd and this week. And I have a good friend who's really interested in moving it onto her property.
Excellent.
It's in play. Both Michelle and Sarah have been working with her to contact Michael Ford. She's called him, but he's not returned the call. So she's written him a note, and she's going to contact the owners next door, the Dawes family, to see if she can get a tour of inside the house. Because he hasn't been inside it yet.
Michelle and Jane, I appreciate your efforts here. You should tell them to contact Peter Polimis.
Would that be better than contacting the Dawes?
I think so. They're probably part-time people, and Peter is handling the application. And if anything is going to be happening with that house, it's Peter or Aaron Polimis is the best person. And I think you're going to get, with all due respect to my good friend Michael Ford, a quicker answer from Polimis on what's happening with the house. And I'm sure they would be very interested if we could move the house. And that's wonderful, Jane. Thank you.
Well,
Frank, can I just comment for a second? Frank?
Yes, sir.
Just so Jane knows, that went to zoning either last week or the week before by Mr. Ford. So they have prepared plans and are ready to move.
Yes, that's why I suggest Polimis.
no, I
Jane?
know that, and the delay is expired.
Yes.
Is still being advertised and is still standing. So, I just
Yes,
thought this with my friend because she needs another house. And she lives on Harbor Road across from Bob Oliver.
Very good, Jane. That's great. Do me a favor, keep me plugged in, and I could reach out to Peter myself and find out what's going on.
Okay, well, just so he doesn't take it down right now.
Yes.
It's in play, and if he gives her a little bit of time to at least go inside and also talk to Eldridge and see about the sewage that was mentioned for host lots, the sewer and
Yes.
where it goes and all that stuff.
Okay, good. Great, Jane. Excellent.
I'm hopeful. It's at least a hope.
Well, thank you.
Okay,
Very much.
and I would appreciate it if you would talk to Peter also, and I will suggest that she does also.
Absolutely. Yeah, we need to put a press on it. It's a beautiful house, and it's a
It
shame.
really
it's gonna be
is.
lost.
It's absolutely in good condition.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else?
I move we adjourn.
Okay, was there a second?
I seconded.
All right. Roll call,
you.
Mr. Lear.
Thank you,
All right.
Sarah.
I'm
Yes,
sorry, there was a comment I couldn't hear.
Yeah, this is done. I was thanking Sarah for her participation today.
You're very welcome. Happy to help out.
Okay, roll call, Mr. Lear,
yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Stephanie,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes,
Don,
Yes.
Steve. Mr. Burlingame? Steve?
Hi, Frank. This is Ryan. It looks like Steve left.
He's got some nerve. Okay, and the chair votes yes. Sarah, again, really, thank you very much. And I'll keep you plugged in on what's going on, and also with 68 Shell. It's getting complicated, but we do have some potentials way to save it. Thank you very much, everybody. Michelle, thank you.